Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Hey, today I'm going to get back on the clutch basket repair for the YL2C Yamaha. We're gonna use the AT1 CT1 Yamaha dampers. I believe all we need to do is just trim that kind of ridge off of the top of the damper a little bit. When we get to that point, I'll show you what I'm talking about. And that's really, you could probably do it without doing that. But the retainer plate, I think you're going to fight it, trying to hold it down while you are setting the rivets. And yeah, you could probably hold it together with vice grips or something, and we may look at that. But when you're trying to peen over the rivets, you don't want a bunch of other things in there like clamps or whatever, because there's not a lot of room to start with. But anyhow, we're going to take a look at that. And when I did the first video, I was talking about drilling these and setting the rivets and everything. And I had Dean remind me, he's Dean at Retro Mechanica. He reminded me that you've got to have a clearance size to your hole. Otherwise, your rivets are not going to set right and it can cause problems. And he's right. And I had, when I was researching this before, if you go to whatever website you're picking up rivets from, actually the rivets that I'm using for this one came from the local farm store. But I had already researched this before, and they will tell you for whatever size rivet you're using, what size hole you need to drill. And I'll show you that chart too. So hey, let me get you over here and let's get started on this thing. Okay, this is the chart that I'm talking about, and I just got this from the rivet website. In this case, I think it's JC Rivets or something like that. Hanson Rivet is another place to go. But we're using a 7/32 rivet, and it gives you a recommended hole size of a number 1, which is a 0.228. And over here it tells you, it gives you a tolerance. You can anywhere from 0.218 to 0.233 should be your hole size. So this sets it right in the middle, so that's where we're going to go. Now, something of great importance when you're doing this, I found out this the first time I did it, that this retainer plate is extremely hard. And to find out, you just take a file. See it? That's just skating off there. It's not even marking it. So that tells me that's hard. This piece here, not so much. So you can see I've marked it here a little bit, so that's okay. And these here are kind of in between. It's not quite as hard, but they are hard. So if you're doing this, you need to prepare and to pick up I'm using a carbide drill bit, but you may be able to get by with a cobalt. Cobalt is going to be a lot cheaper. You've just got as many holes as in this case we've got 6 holes, but we've got 6 holes times however many parts we got here. So we've got quite a few holes to drill, and really the retainer only is going to be the big issue. The rest of them would probably work okay with a normal drill bit. But just be prepared. The first time I did it and tried to do this retainer with a normal drill, I did it, but it squeaked a lot. I had to sharpen it a lot, and make sure you use oil. So the first thing we need to do is drill these, of course. Now, I said that I picked these up at the farm store, and I did. These are used for attaching sickle plates to a sickle mower. The cutting blades that they go back and forth. This is what most of the farmers and ranchers that cut hay use to cut their hay, because you don't want it all chewed up. You're going to lay it out, and then you're going to windrow it, and then you're going to bale it. So these were just the right size. The only thing is they're a little bit long. You know, here is the old ones, and here are the new ones. And of course, I did grind quite a bit off the top. I'm gonna assemble this, and then I'm gonna actually cut these off with the hacksaw just a little bit, or with the whiz blade. But anyhow, these I used on Suzuki's, and they seem to work very good. And these are just going to be just about right for these. But I am going to have to drill out these holes to get my clearance. They go in, most of the holes okay, but they are a little tight. And those rivets, I think, were, I want to say they were about 12 or 15 bucks for a box of 1 pound. 1 pound of rivets at the local farm store. So they will work okay, or you can order them from Hanson or JC. So let me get set up. We're going to go ahead and start drilling these holes out. Okay, I'm just going to set it up here in the milling machine. You can do this with a drill press. These I'm just going to kind of, everything is going to be kind of done free-handed, but I'm going to hold them down so I don't get a lot of chatter and wiggle, and I've just got to kind of get things set up. You know, it's not going to be a real critical thing here. Okay, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. Make sure I'm fairly close. And I just go into the wood. You could do the same with some aluminum or something like that if you wanted. You can see that you can hear it. It's squeaking when it first starts off. It is really hard. So let me finish these up. They're all done the same. Okay, just more of the same on the basket. Oops, gotta put it in gear. And that's no squeaking or anything, that's just right through. So just 4 more times. And then you've got your 3 little dividers here. We've got to do them also. These are a little harder. And 4 more times. Okay, we got all our drilling done. I've got all the components in here, and I'm just looking at what I need in order to brad over. And I'm going to take off, it looks like about a 1/4 of an inch maybe off of that rivet, and actually off of what do I need, 6. So I'll be doing that next. I'm just going to use a whiz wheel here to take it off. And I'm not going to pick that up because I know it's hot. But when it cools off, I'm going to give it that little taper, just like the original one has, right here on the end. Now I've just got the length that I need in my little square here, so I can just quickly transfer it to the next one. I just kind of truing up the end and then give it that little taper. And what I'm looking here for is to be just pretty much flush with the top of this when it's assembled onto the basket. Because here's the original, and it's a little below actually, but not much. We just want to be at least flush, so we're not trying to push this thing down when we're trying to assemble it. So I think by just taking this ledge off, you've got a ledge on both sides, and they're equal. And that's what I just did with this one. Is I just took a razor blade and just start slowly cutting that off. And that's, you know, it's like I say, we just don't want to fight that on assembly, trying to compress that. The basic size of the diameter is extremely close. Okay, so there's that. Kind of like an O-ring. So we just set that way it's flush with this. So we're not fighting that, trying to compress it while we're trying to peen over the rivet. So I think that'll work good for us. So I'll finish that up. Okay, I think we're ready for assembly now. You just kind of wipe everything down. Make sure you don't have anything under these countersunk areas that's going to make the rivet pop up. And make sure that you're putting the gear in properly. This is going to go towards the transmission. So this is the side that is going to go down. It's going to be like that. Remember, you've got your gear with the cog in it that's going to line up there. And we're just going to lay these in and put your little piece in between each one. Okay, this thing's got a lot more moving parts than we're usually used to. These in here. So we've got to be careful that we don't get things tightened up too much so that we can't move it around. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I will put a clamp in a couple places. Let me see what I can come up with here. It just, there's a little bit more to this one than usual. So let's see if we can get in there with one of these. You've got to kind of keep everything in line, but you can really only operate on one rivet at a time. So that's why, yeah, I think that might work. But you've got to have things lined up. Let me kind of play with this a little bit, and I will let you know what, I think what I normally do is run a couple of these rivets in from the back side, and that keeps everything lined up while we're working on the ones that we're working on. So maybe that is the, and if I just, that's not going to work that way. Okay, maybe I can get another one in there without getting too much stuff in the way. You still got to be able to swing a hammer. I need to tighten this one up a little bit. Okay, so now this one is going to go in from the other side like that. And we've got about, oh, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or so sticking out. So let me show you what we're going to do next. Okay, I've got me a brass shaft here that I just put it in the lathe to clean this up. I use this to knock things around, kind of beat on stuff with because it's soft. And that's the same reason I'm using it here, is because I don't want to tear up the inside of the basket. So you need to have brass or aluminum or something like that. But brass is a little more durable. And that's there to back up your rivet on the backside. Now I've just lost most of my rivets that I stuck in from the other side. All right, okay, I got them now. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this over. Yep. I'm having a heck of a time here. Okay, we're just going to set that over that rivet. And this is actually, looks a little better because you can, normally I've just got one hole here, and this way I've got the other one I can kind of look into. And we're going to back that up, and we're just going to start peening that rivet. Okay, that should be enough to hold it. All right, looking good. Okay, I've got 3 of them started here, so I'm going to get rid of my clamps. And this is it's a slow process. It doesn't have to all, just go slow. Make sure that you don't, you're not whacking something you shouldn't be whacking. Just make sure that you stay on your and just, you don't need to take big swings. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to continue on, and I'll bring you back. Okay, there's our bradded over rivets, and they're setting up just about like they were before. Very good. That should get us into the next century, maybe. Okay, guys, we can go ahead and start finishing up our assembly here. I think I went over the size of this washer. I believe it was 2 millimeters. Oil's got stuck down there. So let's just go over that again. Yeah, 2 millimeters, and that one goes right up against the bearing. We've got the gear on, and this is still loose. We'll tighten that when we get the clutch on. And kind of the next thing we need to do is get our spacer in. So we'll get a little oil on that, a little oil on the back bearing there, or the washer. And let me get a little on the inside too. Okay, and then our gear. And again, a little oil on that. Goes in our kick gear idler. And now we're going to install our clutch basket that we just repaired. And we're going to line up the cogs with the clutch. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I was way off. All right. You know, we're lining up our gear at the same time. There we go. All right. So you should have this protrusion. That's where your bearing and washer are going to go now. This is actually the race of the bearing. I think I've mentioned this before. I don't know about on this model, but if you order this bearing, you're going to get both pieces. That's why a lot of times you look in the book and it only shows the one thing there. So this is what you get, and but I think I've only replaced one of those, and it probably was okay. One of the bearings was falling out, but if you get it in there and get it clamped in, it'd probably be okay. Okay, and then you've got the thick washer with the smaller inside. This one is 2 millimeters also, and about 37 by 17. So that's going to go right there. Okay, at this point, we're going to start loading our, this is the part that's kind of backwards. This goes in after your clutch plates. Normally you would have them like this on a lot of the other models. So this one is a little bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead and start, and we've got our fiber that goes in first. Actually, I think I'm going to load them on the basket. I think that's what I need to do, or the hub rather, because I've got to get those other pieces in. So we'll take our, this is the one that's going to be out here, furthest one out. So then we're going to put our expander on there, a little rubber, and then our fiber, and we're just going to keep going like that. Now what I want to point out too is the book tells us that the thickness of these should be 3.5, and then the tolerance is down 0.3, so you can go down to 3.5 to 3.2 and be okay. So that one's okay at 348. So let me get this loaded up. Okay, when you build this clutch pack, you're going to find that this piece on the back, let's see if I can get it back off, right here, this will only go on one way. They had them marked originally from the factory, but the marks are with paint, and the marks are kind of wore off. So what I've done here is I've gone in with a red magic marker and marked this one. And you can see here where there was some orange paint, and I went ahead and marked my red there. That's where they're going to line up. So If you don't do that, this thing is not going to set in here right. So you want to line this one here and where the mark is there and drop them in. You can see that this boss now is below the surface of this. If you don't get that lined up, this will not be like this. It will be raised. So there's several different ways to do this. This is how I'm doing it. I'm just trying to get everything, all my fibers lined up, and you've got to line up the splines on your shaft here also. So I'm just going to try to kind of hold this together and get it down in there. And I've got the line, there it is. Okay. And this still comes up. Another thing you can look at here is this little notched area here. See, these are all rounded. This one's square. So that's the one that needs to go where the paint mark is. So that should be good. So when we get everything, get our springs in and everything, it should be where it should be properly positioned. Okay, got this set in here. I've got my red pin associated with my red mark on the the hub, and I've got my screw or bolts, nuts, whatever they are, started there. So I'm going to go in here. Now I'm using a clutch holder, but you can use the penny trick. Okay, now I'm going to use the penny trick to tighten up my, just stick that right in there. Oops, I'm going to be on the bottom. All right. It'll deform your penny a little bit, but you can use it many, many more times. Okay, so we're tightened on both places there, and now we've got our springs that need to go in here. And then our little, let's see, what am I don't think I'm missing anything there. I'm used to a shaft going in here or a pusher, and it's not there. That's because we're going to push it from the side case. So just get your little bolts started, and these are, be very careful with them and the threads that they're going into. You don't want to overdo any of this. I'd recommend not using a impact. Just run them down a little at a time. All right. And that's what I'm going to do here Let me back you up just a little bit. I'm just going to use my screwdriver with a, you can see now how this is pulling the plate up. So just a little at a time. Okay, got them all run down. Just run them down a little bit at a time in kind of a cross fashion. And now I'm just gonna, these are 9mm. So if you'd been watching my videos, you know that I didn't have a 9mm, and I had to, when I started working on this bike, I had to go get one. I've just, you know, been working on these things for 50 some years off and on, and I didn't have a 9mm. I've never had use for one until I got on this machine here. It's okay. We should be good. Okay, got my gasket on here, and now we're going to have to concentrate on the side cover for a little bit and get some more stuff done to it before we put it on. Okay, I replaced this piece in here. This one actually looks like it's got hairline cracks too, but this is the one that came in it. And you know, it's probably never going to hurt anything because it's contained in there. But I found one and it wasn't very expensive, so I went ahead and replaced it. And it just screws right in there before you put the seal in. Well, you put the seal in, then you put it in, and then you put your lever in. So we should be good to go there. And we've got a ball that goes in there, so we don't want to lose that. So put some grease in it. And then get the ball and stick that puppy in there. And I'm actually going to put a little bit on top of it too, just keep it from coming out of there. Now the next thing we need to do before we put this on is get our shaft, our oil punch shaft in here. And remember, these are all new seals, so we need to treat them accordingly. Get some grease on them. And I'm going to go ahead and get some on my kicker seal too. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get our shaft, and I'm going to, oops, excuse me, put a little grease on it. And it's going to go through from this side. And then we've got a pin that's going to go through the shaft here, like such. And then you're going to line up your nylon gear. You got this little area right here for that pin, and that's going to push on there. Okay, just push that on there until it lines up. It's got a little back and forth play there. And if it doesn't go in this far, you're not lined up with that little pin. Or if the pin is falling out, it will go, but it'll probably go a little bit further. So we're good. It's just try to turn it, and if it spins on there, your pin fell out. So you've got a external tooth lock washer and then your little nut. Let me get set up here to tighten it up. I just like to get a glove on because those teeth are kind of sharp. And it doesn't have to be crazy tight. Get your 14 millimeter and just hold it the best you can. And that should be good. Now what I like to do is put some grease on this surface here. That way if the gasket sticks to the engine, that's okay. As long as it doesn't stick here. That way you've got a way to separate it and you don't have to get a new gasket every time. Because we know that probably the next time we need to get in here, there may not be any. So you've got to take care of what you have and try to reuse it if possible. And these dowel pins, I like to get a little grease and put in those just so they don't rust up. And just kind of let it go right down into the pinhole. And I guess we just need to take a final look here. We've got our O-rings on here, and we've got a dowel pin here and a dowel pin here, and everything looks like it's in pretty good shape there, I think. I'm going to put a little grease on my kickstart shaft. And we still have the ball. And our oil pump gear is in. So let's see what we can do here. Kind of turn this to get that gear to line up. There it goes. Okay, we're down. Okay, now all we got to do is get our screws all started. And remember, we're pushing down 2 O-rings right here. So let's kind of do it in kind of a crisscross fashion and a little at a time. Give them all a little tap. They don't have to be terrible tight. Okay, and once we've done this, we want to make sure that we still have play at our clutch and at our oil pump. You should be able to feel it. It should be reasonably tight, but you should be able to feel that there's some run out there, and you can pull up and down. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is get our oil pump in. Let me get it out of the bag here. And we get our gasket on there. And again, that's, you know, I just had to replace that because I had to get in there, and I don't remember now why, but I did. And that is very hard to scrape, and I had to scrape it. So it's good to put a little grease on it too, so that next time you come in here, the gasket will not stick down there. Okay, here we go. And we'll go ahead and get our, I'm sure a lot of oil is going to probably run out of this thing while we're putting this back on. I want to just put just a little bit of oil. This is Yamaha lube. If I can get it to come out. There it is. Right there on the gear and on the end of that shaft. Oh, I had to replace the oil line, that's why. Okay, so that's down where it needs to be. Get a couple screws. And make sure that thing's down before you go to wrenching on it. And it doesn't have to be terrible tight either. But you can, if it's not down all the way, you can break an ear off your pump. Okay. Okay, next we got to hook this line up. And one thing you need to remember is that in this hole there's a ball, and there's also this little spring. I think the ball you can still get from Yamaha, but the spring is not available. So you want to be cautious about that. Let me look here. Looks like it goes this way. Yeah. Okay, so I've got new washers. I'm going to get that spring in there. I've got a new washer. Oops, I need to get the old washer off. Yamaha's new washers are copper. They're kind of spendy, but they're sure good. Okay, so I got the one in there, and I've got the other washer here, and the ball is in there, and I've got the spring located in the hole. Just like that. Now, we've got another one here. Let's see if this washer comes off as good as the other one did. Yeah, let me clean this one up a little bit. Okay, I've got my other one stuck down here with some grease, and I've got this one on there. Hopefully I can get them captured there. Yeah, it looks good. And be sure to hold on to those lines, don't let them twist. Okay, so that's all hooked up. This is going to run up through that access port. So I think that's about it until we get the carburetor and that kind of stuff on there. Okay, we're pretty well reassembled. Just got to get our carburetor. I did find another float, so I'm going to go back into that and make sure all that looks good. That float just looked wrong to me to start with, and the new one looks more like it ought to look, so we'll see. I also am going to pull the head and the cylinder and put a set of rings in it, I think, and a quick hone. Not sure whether I'm going to wait until I put it on the bike or do it before I put it back in there. So that may be the next thing that we do. I've got gaskets and I've got a set of standard rings, so hopefully that's what it is. These things usually weren't bored much, so hopefully it'll be okay. And I think everything else is in pretty good shape. Just need to clean up a little bit of stuff here and we'll be all set. Okay guys, there you have it. We're pretty much put back together. I think the more I think about it, I probably should go ahead and try to do the rings while I've got the engine out. Just makes more sense. So probably the next time you see this one, we'll be doing that, and then we'll be getting the carburetor all set up and getting ready to put it back in the frame. But we'll probably have at least one video on just taking the top end off and hopefully going right back together with it and having that all buttoned back up. So that's pretty much it. We've got the new rubbers in the clutch. That should be a big improvement. And one thing about it is that clutch is completely different than any other clutch that operates with a push rod from the other side. Those are a lot simpler to install. This one is, everything is kind of backwards. I think I got it all in there right. There's only one way that one piece can go in because if you don't have it lined up right with the paint, it's not going to go in there and it's not going to work right either. So, but I know that part's in right. Everything looks like it ought to, but it has been a long time since I had the clutch cover off one of these. So time will only tell. So hey, thanks for going along on the ride, and we'll see you next video.